Well, we all remember this from the 2012 presidential debates.
I'm sorry, Jim. I'm going to stop the subsidy to PBS. I'm going to stop other things. I like PBS. I love Big Bird. I actually like you, too.
Well, we won't be hearing about PBS or Big Bird perhaps on the chopping block this time around. That was Mitt Romney talking about ways to cut government expenses. He caught a lot of flack for that comment. And maybe Republicans have learned a lesson. You don't want to mess with Big Bird. What does this have to do with 2016? Joining me right now is Jason Russell. He's a writer for the Washington Examiner. Jason, good to have you with us.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
All right, so I was caught a little bit off guard by your column here. You write, quote, Sesame Street really does help preschoolers learn. New reports show the classic children's show really does make preschoolers, I should say, more academically ready for school. So, Jason, are you saying that Sesame Street is a better use of our taxpayer dollars than, say, free preschool, which is what President Obama and Bernie Sanders and others are promoting?
Absolutely. There is a federal Head Start program. We give $9 billion a year to that program, or as opposed to Sesame Street is just about as equally successful at preparing students for elementary school as Head Start, but we only give Sesame Street a couple $100 million a year. I'm sorry, we give PBS $500 million a year, so only some of that goes to Sesame Street, yet it's doing remarkably better for much cheaper at preparing students for elementary school.
Did they say specifically why in the study, why it's working and why Sesame Street has proven to be so successful?
It's not exactly clear, but it was clear that it was particularly successful at helping kids get ready who you would otherwise fall behind. So when you look at boys or black students or kids in low-income communities, they were keeping up with their peers throughout elementary school who otherwise would have been expected to fall behind their peers.
Now, as a parent, I can say I was pretty shocked by how well my infant daughter and toddler daughter responded to Sesame Street. But you mentioned that last little bit of information. There are also some new reports showing that charter schools are serving minorities and poorer students at higher rates than public schools. At the same time, we have a new blog post on the Hill today asking if Hillary Clinton is ready to fight for school choice. Talk about the success of charter schools, because it has been kind of a mixed bag, has it not?
It has been mixed bag, but on average, they're getting better and better, and we're seeing that they're really outperforming the typical public school. So charter schools are, they're still public schools, they're publicly funded, but they're independently operated. So they get a lot more freedom. They're not as bound by union rules about hiring and firing, and curriculum as well is much more free. So it really gives charter schools the opportunity to respond to students' needs rather than to the needs of bureaucrats or teachers' unions.
Yeah, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the issue of school choice and Common Core coming right back. Jason Russell's going to stick around with us from the Washington Examiner. We're going to talk about this issue and how it could impact the 2016 race right after this.
Hi, I'm Henry Winkler, and I'm here to tell homeowners that are 62 and older about a great way to live a better retirement. It's called a reverse mortgage.
Call right now to receive your free DVD and booklet with no obligation. It answers questions like how a reverse mortgage works, how much you qualify for, the ways to receive your money, and more. Plus, when you call now, you'll get this magnifier with LED light absolutely free.
When you call the experts at One Reverse Mortgage today, you'll learn the benefits of a government-insured reverse mortgage. It will eliminate your monthly mortgage payments and give you tax-free cash from the equity in your home. And here's the best part. You still own your home. Take control of your retirement today.
Call 888-411-7230 to get your free guide. Call now and also get this free magnifier with LED light.
Here in the Midwest, there's three things we think highly of, and that's our Lord, our family, and our rifles.
Henry 357. I love this thing.
I took it home, took it out of the box, looked at it, and just thought to myself, what a gorgeous gun.
Once I got the sights dialed in, it shoots and hits like a dream.
There is nothing smoother than a Henry rifle.
Henry Repeating Arms is a family-owned business. My family has been in the gun business since 1911.
Today there's a lot of talk about going green. Going green is great, but protecting red, white, and blue is better.
At Henry, we take great pride in sourcing American-made materials
and deliver an American-made rifle that you would be proud to own.
Henry
Thanks.
Call now for a free Henry catalog and decal, including a list of dealers in your area, so you can own your own piece of American history. Call or log on now.
Now everyone who uses catheters can get a better catheter with Liberator Medical's free catheter sample pack. These new catheters are better than ever, easier to use, more convenient, comfortable, virtually pain-free. Don't wait. Call now and get your free catheter sample pack. There's the all-new compact catheter for women, pre-lubricated, no drips, no mess, fits in your purse. The self-lubricated catheter, it lubricates itself in the package, comfortable, no mess. The closed system catheter, pre-lubricated with its own collection bag, proven to reduce UTIs. The discreet pocket catheter, curved to fit in your pocket to go anywhere. The polished eyelet catheter for micro-smooth comfort, reduces friction and pain. Call now. We'll also bill Medicare and your insurance for you. Call for your free catheter sample pack with free shipping. Call Liberator Medical.
Call 1-800-344-6777. That's 1-800-344-6777.
Hi, I'm Ty Pennington. You know, to build your dream home, you need tools. And the most important tool of all is a low mortgage rate from Guaranteed Rate. Visit Guaranteed Rate online today. In minutes, you can get a free rate quote, see your credit score, and print a letter of pre-approval to go shop for your new home, all at no cost to you. Or you can simply call, and Guaranteed Rate will guide you through the process.
After 4 really bad experiences with mortgage companies, I went to Guaranteed Rate, and the difference was really night and day.
We were going to rent. That was the going-in plan, but the rate was so low at Guaranteed Rate that we ended up buying.
What are you waiting for? Get a low rate from Guaranteed Rate today and experience firsthand the amazing customer service that has made Guaranteed Rate one of the country's top 10 and most trusted mortgage lenders. Call them today.
Call 888-657-1110 or visit grloans.com.
Newsmax comes to primetime TV. Now there's a better choice where your voice is heard. Join the conversation weeknights starting at 8 p.m. only on Newsmax TV. We're building Prime around you. Newsmax TV. Real news. Better talk.
He's got some problems. He's very weak on immigration, Bush, and he's also in favor of Common Core. I think those two things make it very, very hard for him to win in the primary. He's very, very strong on Common Core. He's very, very weak on immigration. I think that's a real problem. I mean, it's a problem with me in terms of voting for him. That I could tell you.
Those two issues right there, do you really think those might settle this election, at least for Donald Trump? Immigration and Common Core. Donald Trump there speaking to Fox News. And he says his loss for Jeb Bush, I guess if he doesn't run himself or doesn't win the nomination, maybe he lost. Bush may not get Trump's vote because of his stance on Common Core. Also, Politico published this article discussing how Republican support for Common Core has changed over the years, and that's a great place to start our roundtable.
All right, let's welcome back Ellis Henican, who is a columnist at Newsday, and Jason Russell, who's written for the Washington Examiner. Thank you both for joining us here on this Tuesday on Newsmax Now.
Thank you.
Hey, guys.
All right, first, let's take a look, guys, at Jeb Bush's stance on Common Core in comparison with former Hewlett-Packard CEO Carly Fiorina.
Common Core means a lot of things to different people.
I think Common Core is a really bad idea.
We need higher standards. They need to be state-driven. The federal government should play no role in this.
It is a giant bureaucratic program, and we have demonstrated over 40 years that the Department of Education can get bigger and bigger and bigger, and the quality of education continues to deteriorate.
All right, Jeb Bush talking about the need for state-run Common Core education. But let me ask you, Ellis, what does Jeb Bush know that the rest of the GOP candidates do not? Because he's sticking to his guns on this one. He's kind of out there all by himself.
No, he's stuck. I mean, he's been so prominent in support of it, he can't weasel out of it. And what's happened, it's so fascinating, is it? Because you know, a few years ago, all Republican politicians basically supported this. I mean, Bobby Jindal in Louisiana was a big booster of Common Core. Now the Tea Party folks revved up and decided that Common Core is a huge outrage, so all the candidates are scampering away from it. And Jeb is the last one to flip. You know, Chris Christie did it, what, a week or two ago. He used to be a supporter, now he's not. Jeb is kind of stuck, and I don't know if he can get out of it.
Yeah, we'll take a look at Christie's evolution on Common Core, but let's start with Carly Fiorina, too.
Yeah, let's do that. She's kind of evolved on the issue. BuzzFeed went all the way back to 1989 to find her master's thesis. Now, while she was at the MIT Sloan School of Management, she wrote, quote, "Where I had begun as a proponent of states' rights in education, I have ended up by believing that we will never meet our own expectations of public education unless the federal government is willing to play a consistent long-term role." So, Jason, what do you think changed her mind?
Well, passage of time, I would say. It's 26 years ago. I think it's tough to hold anyone to something they believed 26 years ago. There's many voters alive today who weren't even alive when she wrote that. So certainly, it's a different era today. Certainly, you could argue that education is much different today than it was in 1989. So I don't give her any blame for changing her opinion on Common Core.
Ellis, do you agree?
Well, listen, what's changed is that the politics of it have changed. It's not any worse an idea today than it was a couple of years ago. In fact, it's really a misnomer to call it a federal program. It is not run by the federal government. In fact, it was specifically created to avoid being run by the federal government. What's happened is that the political landscape has changed. The Republican primary voter is more and more conservative, more and more in the grip of the Tea Party and social conservative types, and they hate it, and so all the candidates are kowtowing to that. That's what's changed.
Yeah, well, I think Jason does have a fair point. I mean, this was written 26 years ago. She is entitled to change her mind here. But let me ask you this, Jason. Why do you think Jeb Bush? I mean, we heard in that interview with Fox News, but other Republicans, like I think Jan Brewer, also has been out there kind of defending Common Core as well. But why do you think it's been so difficult for them to try and sell this? Because it is, as Ellis mentioned, supposed to be the opposite of a federal takeover of the education system.
Well, in reality, that's not how it's actually gone. It has been implemented by the federal government. If you look at Obama's Race to the Top program, if you look at his waivers from No Child Left Behind, those all mandated that states implement Common Core and attached federal dollars to it. So during a recession, these states were really hurting. They needed as much tax revenue from the federal government as possible. So they were willing to implement this just to get the money, which they were short on during the recession. So that's why it's changed so much.
So are you saying that's maybe the biggest change? These states are not so desperate for tax revenue right now. They're not, you know, these Republican candidates say we don't need the federal government anymore. You think it's a revenue thing?
That's part of it, but then it's also, there's still these massive burdens from No Child Left Behind that implement all these penalties on schools that can't meet adequate yearly progress or hold up to these standards that are just getting unbearable. No Child Left Behind expired in 2007, but we haven't been able to find a compromise to get it fixed past since then. So it's just been getting worse and worse, and that's why states are desperate to get to these waivers from the penalties from the government, and that's why they had to implement and keep Common Core.
Oh yes, No Child Left Behind and Common Core. Perhaps is affiliated with that in some way, shape, or form. Yeah. Gentlemen, we're actually take a quick time out. We got to go to a commercial break before we continue our conversation. We're going to bring up Chris Christie and his latest stance on Common Core and the issue of school choice a little bit more when we come right back after this short commercial break.
And welcome back for Roundtable 2. Joining us once again is Ellis Henican and Jason Russell. Thanks so much for sticking around.
All right, let's pick up back, guys, where we left off with Common Core education. Jeb Bush is for it. Carly Fiorina is against it, even though she experimented with significant government involvement in education while she was in business school. Meantime, Chris Christie, well, it's kind of hard to tell.
We're doing Common Core in New Jersey, and we're going to continue.
The Common Core standards were not developed by New Jersey educators and parents.
And this is one of those areas where I've agreed more with the president than not.
I have grave concerns about the way this has been done, and especially the way the Obama administration has tried to implement it.
I mean, they haven't been perfect on this, but they've been better.
Depends who he's talking to. Maybe back in the Hurricane Sandy times, he was crediting President Obama with Common Core. But Chris Christie just recently came out and said it's a terrible idea. Jason, what do you think changed his mind?
Well, I think the politics for sure changed his mind, but basically Chris Christie's trying to have it both ways on Common Core. He's trying to say that he opposes it and that he's taking care of it in New Jersey, but at the same time they're leaving the Common Core tests in place as a way to measure how schools are doing. So even though he can say that we took away the standards in the curriculum, the assessments are still in place, and so really Common Core is still running the show in education in New Jersey, despite what Chris Christie says.
Ellis, how big of an issue do you think this is going to be in 2016?
No, it's big. I mean, listen, the first thing.
Yeah, no, I
any
talked
these
to a lot of
Republican
parents,
candidates have
and frankly, most of them can't stand it.
Well, but listen, let's think about the politics of it for a second, right? The core Republican primary voters, right? The kind of people who turn out in Iowa and South Carolina, places like that, they're highly suspicious of Common Core. So the first thing these candidates need to do is pander to those voters. Tell them what they want to hear. Otherwise, they're never going to get a chance to run against Hillary Clinton or whoever the Democratic nominee is. And so this is a dance. It's a cynical dance. Frankly, I don't understand why these governors particularly won't say, we want high standards. We love high standards. We need high standards in education. We're not able to do them by ourselves, so let's glom onto the program that's doing it. But you know what? The politics have just made that toxic. And so none of them have the guts to do it. I guess maybe Jeb does a little bit, but let's see how well he hangs tough over the months to come.
Let's see what happens if he can find a better way to kind of state the case. It seems like he gets frustrated even to be asked the question. Maybe, again, he knows something that the rest of us don't. And it will also be interesting. You look at Chris Christie's answers there. Obviously, unions playing a significant role in politics in New Jersey. Chris Christie has to deal with a teachers union there. There's some discussion that Hillary Clinton could take on school choice as an issue in this campaign, but will she be willing to buck the teachers unions as well?
Well, right now she's taking on the issue of voting. So let's switch gears if we could just for a minute.
Sure.
Let's talk about automatic, there, can I say that? Yeah, automatic voter registration. Here was Hillary Clinton last Thursday commenting on it.
I call on Republicans at all levels of government with all manner of ambition to stop fear-mongering about a phantom epidemic of election fraud and start explaining why they're so scared of letting citizens have their say.
Well, she also blasted Christie, Jeb Bush, Rick Perry, Scott Walker, all those governors. Ellis, is this part of her shift to the left here to maybe try and outflank some of her more liberal opponents like Bernie Sanders?
God, I hope so. It's a total winner. I mean, seriously, it puts all the Republican candidates in the uncomfortable position of explaining why people should have a difficult time voting. I mean, isn't the politic answer here, and in fact, the moral answer is we ought to let everybody vote. We ought to encourage them to vote. And she's right. Here's a statistic for you I'll leave you with. 1 billion votes cast in America since the year 2000. 31 confirmed cases of voter fraud. It's a phony issue. Let the people vote.
Well, having said that, though, we do need to, I understand what you're saying, but having said that, we look at all the different security breaches that have happened, I can understand some concern. I can. But I still agree with you that I would like it to make it more accessible. So I think there's a compromise that can be reached there, don't you?
Jason, what do you think about this?
Let me just stick with my slogan. Let them vote.
Jason, what about this? Because you often hear the GOP talking about voter IDs, and that's an issue that we've talked about recently. Right. Polling suggests that most Americans are in favor of the idea of voter ID, so why doesn't the GOP talk about that?
Well, I think, frankly, both sides are wrong in this issue. You know, Democrats say that voter ID is racist and it's voter suppression, when that's clearly not the case. You know, you need an ID to get into certain buildings, to buy alcohol, to do all kinds of things, and that's not racist to require ID for that. But on the same side, voter fraud isn't an epidemic, so it's not. It shouldn't be a huge part of the campaign, and it doesn't get a lot of people riled up. It doesn't get people excited to vote for someone who's in favor of voter ID, even though it is an interesting topic that they support.
It's interesting. It does, as you mentioned, Jason, seem like there is a little bit of fear-mongering on both sides of this issue. And unfortunately, we're out of time, guys. We're going to have to say goodbye. We'll have you both back again to continue our conversation. Ellis, Jason, good to talk to you guys.
Thank you.
Good to see you guys.
All right. Would be nice if more people voted and participated. Not saying you got to make it mandatory.
I want to make it accessible, but I agree with what Jason said. Show an ID.
It's like a muscle. You don't flex it, you're going to lose it.
That's right.
All right, coming back here with more on Newsmax Now.